Friday. Today we're looking at John 14, 1 to 14. A very popular passage. John 14, 1 to 14. John 14, 1 to 14, and it reads as follows. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, I would have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I'm going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going, so how can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. Jesus answered, don't you know me, Philip, even after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Or at least believe on the evidence of the works themselves. Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father, and I will do whatever you ask. I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that my Father may be glorified in the Son. You may ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it. May the Lord bless the reading of his word. Well, I love this passage, and I love how Jesus is talking with the disciples and having a great discussion. So, when I went to nursing school years ago and didn't finish and became a CNA and all the rest of that, but that's not what we're here today, is my career path, but learn about what this passage is talking about. When I was in nursing school, there was two really basic schools of thought that really stuck in my mind. One was reality orientation, and it was just on the cusp of dying, because they would say, if you have a confused patient who thinks they're on a train to Boston, you tell them you're not on a train to Boston. You're here in the hospital. You're here in the nursing home. Your mother and father have passed away. They're not living anymore. And you just kept focusing on that. And thankfully that has died away, and people don't really preach that or teach that anymore. You go to where the person is. I'll give you a fantastic example of my mother. My sister was in to visit with her, and they were going for lunch down the dining hall. And my mother was adamant about saying, I cannot leave this room, because my mother and father are coming, and if they know that I'm not here and they get here, I'm going to be in trouble. Well, her mother and father, of course, passed away years and years ago. So my sister's stuck. She's arguing with me. She's wondering, what am I going to do? I got to eat lunch. She wants to eat lunch. We're going to sit in the room doing nothing. So my sister goes, I've got it. Let's write your mom and dad a note, and we'll put it right here. They'll see it as soon as they come, and they'll know that we're down the dining room, and they'll come down and have lunch with us. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And my mother said, wonderful, let's do that. And it got my mother there. And so that's reality orientation has gone away, hopefully. I mean, it's still there, and sometimes, you don't lie to somebody if they really want to know. But another thing that was driven home to us in nursing school that has really stood the test of time is do not give false reassurance. When you're dealing with a patient or a family, don't tell them everything's going to be okay. A, if it's not going to be okay, or B, if you don't know. because we don't give people false reassurance. That's not proper, and that's not right. It's better to be honest. You know, I've often heard that saying, don't comfort me with a lie, tell me the truth. I need to know the truth. So don't give false reassurance. So getting to our passage, you're thinking, well, where is it going? We see Jesus giving assurance to the disciples and to us, in essence. And it's not false reassurance, it is true reassurance. And I'm so happy that we can see this and happy that we can be a part of it. Because as I was preparing this message and I read this passage, I was reminded of a quote in a movie. And the quote in the movie was, in all things, one must take the end into account. And that's what we must do. Everything in life that transpires, we must take the end into account. It might be where we're going to go eat, or what are we going to do the next day, or how we're going to tackle this problem, or how we're going to enjoy this situation. We take the end into account. And that's what we're doing. And that's what Jesus is doing. He's taking the end into account. Because it sounds, from just what he's saying, that we can get from the passage, that the disciples are worried, they're worked up, what's going to happen, what's the next step, how are things going, what's going on. And he's basically telling them to calm down, don't worry. Now, as I said, it's not false reassurance. Many times we tell people to calm down and not worry, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But Jesus is telling them to calm down. And he doesn't just tell them to calm down, but he continues on that vein and helps them out. So where does he start? He starts simply by saying, don't let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. So he's telling them right off, don't let your hearts be troubled. Don't be anxious. Don't be concerned. And as I said, sometimes we can say, don't worry about it, when we have to worry about it. But Jesus is saying, don't worry about it. And I'm going to tell you why. And he tells them. And he sits down with them. He takes time. Jesus knows all their troubles. He knows what they're going through, what they have been through, and what they are going to go through. And he says, don't be troubled. And I'm sure they've had different reactions. And they're worried about Jesus going away, and what they'll face, and what's going to happen. What does the future hold? As we worry about the future. There's many times in our day-to-day life where we worry about the future. What's going to happen? What does the future hold? And we can get discouraged, and we can get sad, and I think the disciples were that way. Because we see how he reacts. You can tell they were sad, they were going to be deserted, they were going to be exposed, and Jesus goes away. And he said, don't let your heart be troubled. Because he knew their hearts were troubled. And I think that's where he comes to where they are. And we can be troubled. And we see the disciples were troubled. And we see how trouble can take our heart and take our mind and distract us and get us discouraged and keep us from what we need to focus on, that loving relationship we have with the Lord. But he's telling them, believe in God, believe also in me. Through Jesus Christ, we are brought into a covenant with God. And I love how he puts this. He lays it down for them so they would understand, and we too would understand. And he's very simple, very straightforward, very basic. That's what I love about it. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, I would have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you. So he said, I'm telling you the truth. If it wasn't the truth, I wouldn't tell you. I love that. Very basic, very straightforward. Saying the truth. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. Very direct, very trusting on him. That trust. He knows them. He knows what he's going to do, and he wants them to know what he's going to do. And I love how he says, my Father's house has many rooms. If that weren't so, I would have told you. And that I am going to prepare a place for you. Our house in heaven. the Father's house that He is preparing for us. Now, I know some translations, there's many mansions, and some say mansions, and some say rooms. And I've often talked with different people about that and what they feel and everything. But I just personally, if I find myself in heaven, I will be forever happy. Whether it's a mansion, a room, whatever. The fact that I'm in heaven and communing and fellowshipping with God, that will be happy enough for me. So he makes sure that we let us know about this heavenly place, that place that He is preparing for us, a place for me and for you if you believe. And we have that assurance. Jesus takes great pains to make sure we have that assurance, so we know what's going on. We know what's going to happen. We know what the future holds. And we see the grace of Jesus Christ there. And how we'll have that wonderful relationship. So He says to them, to the disciples, and He kind of drifts off a bit as far as they're concerned. He says to them, you know the way to the place where I'm going. And many times when people were talking with Jesus, they were thinking very earthly, and He was speaking heavenly. He was talking heavenly, speaking about that. And we see the reaction they get. And these were two disciples. And He even says to them, you were with me a long time and you don't get it. So if we don't get it, I'd give ourselves a little bit of leeway. If we get confused or we get misunderstood. So first we get Thomas. Thomas, and we've talked about Thomas before. He's been labeled as the doubter, but he's the one that was going to go with Jesus no matter what was going to happen. And he wants to get more information. I never fault anybody who wants to get more information. No matter how they ask the question, if he wants to get more information, he says, Lord, we do not know where you're going. So how could we know the way? And again, they had traveled many places, seen many different people, traveled many different ways by boat and by walking in different places. And now Jesus is saying, I'm going away. Well, where are you going? I don't know the way. And Jesus answered an earthly question about an earthly situation in the most fantastic spiritual way. A wonderful spiritual way. And Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do not know Him. From now on, you do know Him and have seen Him. So Thomas asks, where am I going to go? Is it Bethlehem? Is it where are we going? Where are we going? He's like, it's not around here, it's heaven. And I am the only way, the truth, and the life. And if you know me, you know the Father. I am the way. I am the only way. No man comes to the Father except through me. That's just a fantastic way of looking at it. Fantastic. Jesus is giving them that reassurance, giving them that comfort. And it's not false reassurance. We can trust in it. We can believe in it. And we can even be a part of it. That's the beautiful thing. We don't have to sit on the sidelines and go, wow, they're for sure fortunate. They're sure lucky. Or whatever we want to say. We too can be a part of that. So because we have Christ the mediator who comes to us, brings us to God. Because if we were to go to God on our own, He is the judge. And He would judge us fairly and justly. And I'm telling you, nobody wants to be judged fairly and justly by God. Because we've all sinned, all fallen short of the glory of God. You know, it was a trend for a little while to say, cool kids would say, only God can judge me. And that should shake them to their core. That should scare them. Because God is a just judge. But Jesus comes to us and comes to God and acts as our mediator. And He tells us, if you know me, you know the Father. So fantastic way to respond to Thomas's question and answer. Then we get Philip. Philip is kind of quiet. We don't know much about Philip in the way of, as we do say, Peter, who is usually there up front and kind of, I think he shoots first and asks questions later. Kind of talks and asks questions or says statements and like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Or maybe I should have done that. But Philip says, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. again, I don't think he's challenging. So many times in the interactions that Jesus had with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, it was a challenge, and he's got to, deal with this challenge. But this is simple. Philip wants to know what's going on. Tell me, how show us the Father. Show us the Father. And I love Christ's response to it. Jesus refers to what he has seen. For 3 years, you have seen me. And if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. I am the Messiah. All that saw Christ in the flesh have seen the Father. And all that saw Christ by faith also see the Father. Jesus told them to believe in this, and it was something that they could believe in. And then he goes one step further. Many times we have people just calm down. Calm down. Or if your parents were anything like my parents, do it. I never asked why. Because they said, because I said so. So I would do whatever they wanted me to do. And Jesus doesn't say, don't worry about it. But he goes one step further. He says, you've seen the Father. And he makes sure they know that. And then he even goes one step further. He says, okay, if you don't believe the Father, and you're having trouble understanding this and getting it, which I think, a lot of people would have. He says, what about my miracles? Look at my miracles. Look at my works. And that doesn't just stand for Jesus. That stands for everybody. We can tell a lot by a person by their works or their lack of works. And I'm not saying we go out and judge people. Oh, look at that guy. What's that guy up to? But we see what they do, how they love one another, how they treat and how they interact in the today's world. Oh, we see how Jesus cared for them. He corrected them. He taught them. And we often get the sheep shepherd analogy, how he guided them, directed them, and he was there for them. And we see how Jesus is silencing their fears of what to come and what's going on. And he does it in such a loving way, in such a fantastic way, that it's just a wonderful interaction that he's having. And then he says, pray. Jesus says, pray. That's what we need to do. And I heard a really sad statistic this year, and I'll tell you how I came about it. I was getting ready for the KBA meeting, and I'm prayer coordinator, so that's why I got a little up on prayers and everything. So to the administrative assistant or secretary, there's my report, prayer coordinator report. I get to the meeting, I check all the papers, everybody else's report is in there, and my report is not there. So I Googled just that case in point. I said, are Christians praying less than they used to? Just Christians. I'm not talking about the world. I'm not talking about people that are not associated with Christianity at all. Just Christians. Are they praying? And unfortunately, they are praying less. And that's sad to hear and sad to say. Because Jesus is saying, just pray to me. Let's have that relationship. So that you know what's going on. So that you can have that relationship. And Jesus, when he taught us the Lord's Prayer, which we've looked at, and many people know it and study it, and we can probably recite it, he doesn't say, ask anything and I will do it for you if you ask in my name. But here he's going that one step further. I think really emphasizing prayer, emphasizing just the nature of prayer and the importance of prayer, that we go to the Lord, that we have a communion with him, we have a fellowship with him, we have a relationship with him because we're going to him in prayer. And he says, ask. You need to ask. You need to ask. And we should pray. And pray to the Lord for what we need, what we care about. Then we can get that relationship going. We can have that one-on-one relationship with the creator of the universe. Isn't that fantastic when you stop and think of that? But he loves us so much that we can have a relationship with him. So Jesus is saying, if you're troubled, I got you, as the kids say. I got you. Don't be troubled. If you've seen the Father, you've seen me. If you've seen the Father, I are one. and anything you ask in my name. So he's telling them, calm down. Don't worry. But we live in a world of worry. We live in a world where people aren't calm. You don't have to go very far to see all this. But Jesus is telling us, calm down. Trust in him. Look to him. Focus on him. Because Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Isn't that fantastic that we have a Savior who is the way, the truth, and the life, that we can believe in, that we can receive all the blessings that he bestows upon us, only by believing and then acting on that belief, by loving God, loving others, and spreading the good news. I love this message. And I think if you're here today and you're worked up about something, or something's bothering, or something's on your mind, and it could be something good, could be something bad. I think this tells us what we need to hear. Do not let your heart be troubled. And Jesus doesn't just say, don't let your heart be troubled, and moves on. He says, don't let your heart be troubled. Because I'm preparing a mansion for you, a room for you. Whatever he's preparing, we know that he's in heaven. We know that he's preparing for us because he loves us. And let us love him. If you're here today and you want to come forward and give your life to the Lord, I will gladly accept you, and we can have a word of prayer, and the Lord will gladly accept you. They'll be rejoicing in heaven. If you're here today and want to be baptized, if you're here today and just want to pray, come forward and we'll pray and have a fellowship together.